I'm going to pump this shock up to about 160 pounds of pressure, because that's about my weight with the shock pump, and then I will hit the auto sag button. So I thread it in. Anybody that's familiar with air springs will know all about these air shocks. So now, it takes quite a while to pump it up. And ideally, you will have a pipe pump. So I got to almost 50 pounds. Might be here a while. And here you're supposed to pump it every so often. Let it bleed through. Next time I only go to 150 pounds, I'm going to use a full-on bike pump, because this little pump takes too much. Okay, up to 100 pounds. I'm used to going down from 0. Valve, and make sure so the shock will keep all the air that we just worked so hard to pump in. The air that's in here is going to come out, but the air that's inside the chamber is going to stay in because we flipped this lever. Okay? Okay, so that one's done. I'll put the cap on that later, but for right now, I'm going to set the sag. Okay, cut.
Wait, what?
Okay. Alright. And setting the sag. Take 1. Action. Okay, cool. So, this is what it feels like. I got maybe an inch of travel, it feels like. If you just look at my heels, where my heels are, maybe I got an inch, and I think this bike has close to 6 inches of rear wheel travel, so 5.5 inches. So I need to set the auto adjust. Come look over here, Mr. Cameraman. And this Fox Float CTD Evolution has an auto adjust, so I'm going to hit this. Now I can go flat foot up to tippy toe. So if we look at my heel, that's about how much suspension we have. It should be between overall range 20 to 30%. I think this is closer to 25 to 30%. And that's how we got it. So I'm going to let off the brakes, and then we'll go to the rebound test. If I'm just testing the rebound now, there we go. I bounce a couple times. Alright, and cut. Okay, cut. Okay, and cut.
Yes.
Alright, and action. 10-4. Alright, my assistant is holding the bike, and we're looking at the clicker. This is the clicker, and as we can see, it is all the way turned clockwise, so we're all the way tightened in. We can turn this so that it is all the way out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and that's about 13. I always like staying on the last full click. Alright, and now we'll try this one more time and we'll call it good. Here we have a Fox Float CTD Evolution and the pump that we're going to check the pressure with. Alright, we're live. We've got the needle assembled. It goes in between this knurled thread right here and this guy, and I have tightened this up and I've put this on finger tight. So this needle will be penetrating this hole here. But first I'm going to thread it into our shock pump. And the whole reason I'm using the shock pump for this right now is I'm curious to see how much pressure there is left. We will see how this goes. No promises. I suspect, based on the shock's behavior, it was very much underdamped on compression and very much underdamped on rebound. I would not be surprised if the seal that keeps the oil out of the top air chamber, one of those seals has been compromised. Okay, so I've got this guy threaded in now. I've snugged it in. With all these, they have O-rings, so you don't need to get a tool and crank on them. At least that's my understanding of it, so we'll see how that goes. I'm going to put on some safety glasses. I don't believe anybody on YouTube has done this with a pump that is only rated to 300 psi. In Fox's literature, they seem to indicate you want to go up to 500 psi with these. So I'm going to try to hold it for your benefit and mine so that the camera actually picks up what we're showing. And I do want to make sure that none of this is pointing towards me in case any of it lets go. So, alright, so I'm lining up the needle. I'm hoping this is showing up on camera. Yep, it's showing up on camera. Okay. Lining up the needle. A little bit harder to line up than I would have thought. Okay, so get the needle lined up. Okay, I'm going to push gently. And if anything in this assembly lets go, I've got a problem. This, I hope, holds all of the pressure. And we will see how it goes. We should see this gauge snap up. We do have this pump holding pressure. I have depressed the valve, so all the pressure will travel up through the pump, not just into the needle. And these needles are rated for very high pressure, so hopefully the one I got off of eBay that I'll post in the description is a quality piece. I'm just giving little tugs. Try not to buckle this needle. These needles are pretty small. Thinking about just putting a little bit of gear oil. Part of this guy. We'll see how that goes. From what I've read, the Fox Float fluid is some special 80 weight gear oil. So I've got 80 to 90 weight gear oil around handy. So we'll see how that goes. I've seen no movement on this guy yet, so I'm gonna pause the video for a minute. Okay, so we still got most of it in the shot. What we don't have is the pressure gauge. Oh, we have gauge, okay. So we got the gauge. I have put some 5-weight fork oil on an applicator, also looks like an Allen key. We will see if any of this helps this to slide into this deal. Now this is my first time having to use any of these types of tools. For nitrogen or high pressure service, so that is a little bit new to me. So we'll go back for a second attempt. It should penetrate. When it does, I would expect the fluid to leak out. So, yeah, so we do see it build up. Let's see, I'll try pulling it out. Okay, so there's just a little bit of pressure built up in this guy. Alright, let's wet the tip of this needle, and we'll see if that goes any smoother. Through and yeah, we got a big grip on there. Let's see about just putting a drop right in the middle. So no matter what that tip touches, it will all be wet and lubricated. Ow! I was wondering if I'd poke myself, and I just did. So now we line it up. And I do have a new rubber plug that came with the rebuild kit. So stick it in a little easier. You know, the other thing they say to do is loosen this bolt. So I'm going to take the right sized Allen key. First I'm going to have to figure out what that size that is. And I will loosen this bolt. So that there's a little bit less pressure on this assembly when I try to stab through it. There we go. You can see here in the light what size this is. A lot of places they say to be very cautious not to remove this all the way, just to loosen it. not seeing any indication of how big this is. But this one fits, it is metric. My lighting out here is subpar at best. So I'm going to take this, let's give it about a half a turn. Oh, that's not that bad. Let's hold that, so if I lose the plug, oh, it already let some air out. And it was not that much. So, my measurement was not accurate, but I'm still going to go for it. Oop, there we go. And it went up to 100, and now it's headed down pretty quick. So I've got a leak somewhere in probably my test assembly, and it is bleeding down. So I had at least 100 psi in this bottom leg. So now it is down at 0. It is safe to continue disassembly. Alright, so I'm going to pull this guy out. I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to take all of the air out. I don't want any pressure in there whatsoever, so I'm going to disconnect the pump, which will leave this completely open. Should have left that stuck in there. But I got a new plug anyway. Okay, so like so. And I'm relatively pleased that nothing blew up. Now, this guy was easy enough to get off. I think the tool is over here. So I can just open this just a little bit, let the rest of the air bleed off. It is basically 0 psi. I just want this to be completely free and clear. And it is now depressurized, de-energized, so it is now safe. Alright, there we go. So we have the bolt, we have a plug, and I'll have to get my little pick kit to pick the plug out. As you can see, the plug now has a hole right in the middle. It probably had to have one in there in the first place because whoever filled this up at the factory had to have a hole to put air or nitrogen, most likely nitrogen, in that body. Alright, let's move on to the next. And action. Alright, I want to make sure my parts are in the shot. So, what I found was, after I inserted the needle a couple times, and I don't know if you can see it, the bevel on the needle ended up having a hook to it. So I filed some of that off. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but I would like to reuse this needle. I do have a spare. I just don't want to grenade one of these critical parts that's not easy to make on your own without at least trying to test this out with the parts that I'm going to be replacing. So I'm going to try to find my leak in my test setup, because it seems that there is a leak, and it also seems that it's going to be hard for me to fix when I get it all back in and I'm trying to reassemble. So I'd rather fix it with the old parts and not mess up my new gasket or plug or whatever we call this thing. I'm really surprised how much force it takes. I did try to back off that Allen key a little bit, but as you can see, I am kind of buckling this hypodermic needle. I see a lot of YouTubers, and the factory itself has a tool that it... Oh yeah, I'm buckling snot out of this. I don't know if this thing's going to be any good anymore. I will make myself one of those tools and we'll come back to it.
So, I got the needle assembly tested and it will hold pressure. I have this guy out, the plug, the metal portion of the plug. The black plug is still in there and I'm trying to get it out. But when I push here, listen to what sound is made. You hear kind of a rushing wind or something to that effect. That's all the damping I really have, right? That's on the locked out. If we switch to regular, hear the squish, here's full. It's a lot of swoosh, no movement in that plug though. So, again, I think I lost control of the lockout. Yeah, sometimes this Allen key becomes loose. So, so we've got our shock in, instead of soft jaws, these soft jaws are just actually wood shims. You got it clamped down in the vise, and according to all the folks on YouTube, this is relatively easy, so we'll see if that is the case. That's not my experience. Nope. Alright, it says we're recording. We're going to give it a go. Put some gloves on. We'll see if this goes any better. And I've got to kind of hold the vise with my knees because it is not anchored. I suppose I could snug these down a little. That might help. Getting a better workspace would have been a great idea, but this is very close to the house. And easy to go take breaks. Alright. Now the whole vise works as one. Alright. Let's see what we can get done here. Oh, that's tightening. I wonder. Okay. I don't think I got any movement. I think maybe I did. Just not very much. Huh. Alright, welcome back. I went out and purchased 2 strap wrenches because it came in a pack of 2 for $5 at a Harbor Freight. They're pretty decent if you just want a cheap tool, so that is all I was looking for here. So we're going to cut this loose. I'm using the bigger one. Try not to cut your hands. Using the bigger one. And here's where you need to figure out which way you want to go. So, I want to come this way, which is counterclockwise. So I want to be pushing this direction, so I will wrap this way. Now, do I need this whole length of the strap wrench? I don't know, probably not. This one's probably overkill. spot. This falls into the category of get a bigger hammer. Alright, so I'm going to start applying some pressure. I'm going to see, sit so I can see it. And this side as well. Make sure you can see it. Yep, you can see it. Alright, here we go. It's going to stretch for quite a while. Make sure we don't engage that top piece. Okay, here we go. Wow, I'm really having to put some force. I'm wondering if I should be doing this differently. Ah, it slipped onto the overlap here. You gotta make sure you stay only on the surface you want to be on. You stay off of the other part. Okay, let's just keep it all lined up in one spot. Won't worry about being fancy and engaging other parts of this. So we're probably going to see a fair amount of slip as the spiral slides on itself, and that's fine. I'm not having to put that much pressure. My shoulder is not feeling so great on this. There we go. That went. Okay, now it is broken loose. I want to do a capture and see how much oil we have here, so I'm going to stop the tape, reposition. So we repositioned. I'm going to take this out of the vise. And I checked before I took it out of the vise. It's easy enough to get out. So I'm just going to twist this loose. Of course, it's easier to get out in the vise when it's in the vise still. Darn, left arm's not feeling so hot. Okay, still doing it by hand now in the vise. Give it a couple turns, make sure it feels right. Okay. So, let me see if we have any flux float fluid in here. And if so, how much? I think this thing was over torqued or dry or both. It took a lot to get that off. It's feeling pretty dry. I don't know if you can hear it. And this shock was not leaking. Air outside, it seemed to hold a charge just fine. At least for the time that I've had it. It's only been about a month. Less than a month. Okay. I'm off of the threads, as you can see, but it still does not want to move. So, I'll try a couple different things here. Try to break it free. I don't know about that. There we go. Okay, so you still have a little bit of air spring engagement. And this guy was completely dry. I'm getting nothing out. So, that's not good. No drips at least. Let's see. Yeah, this guy needs a big cleaning. Okay. That was educational. Okay. So we have an assortment of picks. I believe this is also a Harbor Freight special. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. All of the videos I've seen have not had this reset valve in the rebuild videos. So I want to try to address that here. I believe we need to pick this off. I'm under it now. I'm trying not to scratch any surfaces with this pick, so I'm trying to go under. And now that I am under, I treat it like a bicycle tire, I guess. I'll just go here and work our way around. The snap ring should go just fine. Okay, and I think we got it. Alright, so there's one. So now, what does that do for us, okay? This guy's still freewheeling, but it's still connected, so. Yeah, it's still got air in there. So, how do we do this? Trying not to engage the threads, but trying to pull this plug out. I'm getting there. It's rotating on me. I had thought about reusing this plug, but odds are it's not going to be reusable by the time I get done picking it out. Maybe just back it out like this. It's got a lot of drag in it. Look at that. It still wants to compress itself up. So. The other guys used a knife blade, and I'm wondering if maybe I need to do that instead. I actually used a razor blade. This is all I got out here right now. I'm not getting any penetration there. Getting it to lift on one side, just not enough. Ha! That worked. So I was able to unthread it. Alright, so that's what it looks like. It's got a little needle hole in it. Only one hole. Neat. Alright. It might actually be reusable, but we're going to skip reusing it for now. Let's see if that... Okay. Pause it and we'll see something else. So I depressed this and then I pulled down and it came off just fine. So that was the trick. That was the missing piece I was not getting done. Alright, now it's on to future steps. Alright, so we got the can off. The next thing we're going to do is take this Allen key, I found the right size, put it in there. We're going to very slowly loosen it. And you'll notice I did put on some gloves. From here on in, everything's going to be messy. Okay, so it did let out some pressure. I'm seeing a lot of micro bubbles, so there's probably some air in there. I'm just going to let it bleed. And let's see. Oh yeah, that's a nice healthy black. Usually when you check out your oil, when you do an oil change, it looks pretty gross, so I'm not too surprised by this. I'm just going to let it slowly bleed off. Just don't let it go all over. Now, I don't know if this means that there was air in that upper chamber. It might, but now after it quits bubbling, that may take a while. I'm gonna go ahead and take that one out, and then there's a small ball. I believe it's like a ball check. I bet you guys got a pretty good angle on this. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, I'm seeing little bitty bubbles. Those real small ones coming out. Now, adjust the camera. I adjusted to macro mode, 1 centimeter mode, and if that was just fluid bleeding out, it would just ooze, but I believe there's some air trapped in there. If it was just fluid, it wouldn't really be under that much pressure because we just drained all the fluid off the bottom. So let's see how that treats us. So the bubble frequency has gone down. I'm going to go ahead and take this the rest of the way out. I just didn't want it shooting out under pressure. That's always a bad thing for me and for the part. You guys might not much care. You will when it's you. Oh yeah, there's nothing in there now. Okay, now I gotta go pretty far down low to get any bubbles out. Nobody else did that and stroked the center shaft. I just wanted to make sure that there was no trapped pressure, and just feeling how much it moved and how easily it moved. There is none. So this Allen key, this set screw right here, will not shoot out. It's all fine when someone else does it on YouTube. Everybody. Sorry, we lost battery. I got that Allen set screw out. I'm going to see about getting the ball out. Apparently. What's that? Well, people on YouTube did not do this, but I'm going to do a catch anyway. So, my magnet didn't work as good as theirs. And I think Fox in their instructions, they say to do a couple things. So from here, it's going to pour. Hopefully any of that allows this ball to come free, and I capture it if I play my cards right. There it went. Tink. Alright. See? One ball. And I'm putting it elevated a little bit in my soft jaws because I have very simple soft jaws. I would much rather have a set of aluminum ones, but these wood ones work for what I'm doing. So, we got one ball. Make sure we still have one ball. Yep, one ball, one set screw. Okay, and we need one crescent wrench. There's a bird telling me all about it. Okay, so one thing they make real clear in all of the literature is not to put the jaws of the wrench or crescent wrench or whatever size this is, 15, 16, 18, don't apply pressure to that location where the hole was. It's not going to be strong. And I can understand that. You don't want that collapsing. Okay, so we got this snugged up. I'm going to loosen it ever so slowly. Make sure this is nice and snug. Okay. I can hear my wood giving. I don't like that, but let's crank that in a little more. So the wood collapsed a little bit. That's okay. Solid block at the bottom with some holes drilled. So now we go back, find our alignment, get here, and we pull. Okay. This is harder than I thought. Okay. See, I'm going to watch a video. We'll see if these guys take all this stuff off or not. I think that's part of the air assembly, but it might end up helping to allow that to free turn. Okay, so what they're doing is they're taking off these two white keepers and the rubber piece in the middle. And what I've found is there's a very fine line on this one. There's a break in between the two. So what they do, it appears they do, is they go under it. This is really easy, by the way. It takes very little resistance. So I'm just getting under it. Yeah, I say it's very easy, and then I don't get it done. But it's very little force on this. And if I can get that snapped off, there we go. That one's set down. Now we'll look for a split in the other one. Oh, there's a split. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Oh, but yeah, when you put any amount of force on it, it just pops right over. Okay. I'm sure that you can hear that bird in the background, because I sure can. And if there's a way I can filter that out and make my stuff sound all pristine, make you guys think I was in a shop. Okay, now I'm going to take this one apart. Now for my rebuild, I am not planning on replacing this washer assembly unless I break it. Of course I could, but if it's not broken, if it's not working wrong, I don't see the point. This appears to be the same top to bottom, bottom to top. I'm going to put it the way I found it. Okay. So, There's that. Now, that puts me in the same spot everybody else is, and I should be able to take this piece off of this piece. So, let's give that a shot. Okay. So, we're going to add a little bit of liquid wrench. We're going to see if it gets in, and it can get in, and penetrate in there and loosen things up, okay? Doesn't take a ton, this stuff. It's a penetrating oil, so it is supposed to get in and has high capillarity, and it gets in very small crevices so that it can help break loose stuck bolts. So I'm going to just leave that for a couple hours and read the directions. It's always nice to do that after you apply the product. And then I will see how long they say to let it last. Usually a couple hours works, overnight's a little better, but I'd like to get this done. Alright, thanks. We got some better aluminum soft jaws covered with duct tape, and we got this in the vise nice and secure. And we let it sit with some liquid wrench for 24 hours. So that should be a pretty good improvement, and we'll see if we can get this thing apart. Okay, attempt number 1. We got the area of interest away from where I'm going to be. Soft jaws made all the difference. Now we can undo the rest by hand. There we go. Reposition. Okay, so what we can see here is I dumped some of the oil that had drained when I had this thing upside down, and there's some volume there. I'm going to pour the rest out, as we can see. So that's the volume that we had left. Now it's time to give it a good cleaning. So we'll get a bunch of alcohol and we'll get it out. We also need to remove the IFP piston, which is all the way down here. So we'll make sure and get that out, and I've got a sneaky suspicion that it's all the way down at the bottom. But we'll go ahead and get that out. Alright, everybody else on YouTube makes this look real simple. I don't know that it will be. I saw no movement whatsoever there. Nope, that ain't going. Okay. Gonna try this. It's making no progress. Try this. Okay, I think that's in there. Now we see. Okay, appears. Oh. Yep, it shot right out. Probably too much pressure, by the way, but I was aiming it right at myself. I felt the bounce off me, didn't lose the part, so I'm going to count that as a success. So there is our part. Alright. Alright. I've seen a lot of people use a terry cloth. That'd be great. I've got paper towels readily available, so I'm going to use those to just dry off any remaining oil, alcohol, you name it. Shouldn't say terry cloth, it's more like a lint-free rag, which I know is better and less damaging, but this works just as well. Okay, so now I'm done with that. I'm going to set that aside. And we'll move on to this guy. So we need to get this guy apart, and I may have to clean this up a bit. Even to get it apart. So it appears that there's an Allen key in the middle, and I will be looking up on a drawing before I go trying to take that apart. But looks like I would need an even smaller Allen key than this. That would be a really small one. Okay. Gotta go read. Okay. It turns out this Allen key does fit, so I'm just gonna loosen this guy ever so slowly and carefully. It's a very small Allen key, so I really don't want to damage the threads. feeling any movement in this thing. Okay, time to read some more. I think Fox did have a special tool to try to grab a hold of the bottom of this shim, but I don't know if that applies to me or not. That was convenient. So I squeezed this guy down and he slid off. So this is the shim pack and this is the piston. Now I've seen people pull this guy off, this bearing, or this seal. The other videos I've seen had a different attachment to this piece, so I need to go figure out what that is. So for the purposes of this rebuild, I can go one of two routes at this point. I can reassemble everything just per spec and refill it with oil, which is likely what I'm going to do, or I can replace the shims, which I've got, instead of being a soft compression and soft rebound, I've got shims that are medium compression and medium rebound. And I've got Fox's solution for both of those. They're shim stacks. So those are my options. But regardless, I'm going to need to clean this guy out. Okay, so I put the keeper back in, and I'm going to see how this thing behaves with mostly alcohol in it. Gotta say, I'm not thrilled with how much damping that is. I know alcohol is much less viscous and than much less viscous than most oils, 5 weight, 10 weight, you name it. But this is just so little. Do you think that that's all I got? That's all it takes. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with redoing this. I can try putting oil in it, but I just don't see the point. After using all of the different modes and ramping up the adjustable red knob where we do the rebound damping, I still was not able to get enough rebound damping, so I'm going to empty what's left of the alcohol. It is more cloudy, so I did pick up more contaminants. And now I'll wipe this guy out again and wait for our next step. So I was able to get this guy out. I tried turning it quite a few times. I did not need to turn it, it just ended up pulling straight out. So that worked out nicely. Now, this might be where that special tool comes in. It appears that there are 4 holes. It looks like the special tool ties into 2 of them, and then you twist this thing loose. I'm also noticing right here, I'll take a photo up close, it looks like that has been damaged on this seal, so that is probably letting some of the oil get out of the oil circuit and into the air circuit. I believe this is my main problem. So this is a macro view. This appears to be a damaged seal, and this is really up close so you can see the needle point. This guy, whatever he is, has been fractured. Whether that's a metal seal or whether that's a rubber seal, it is completely busted. So it needs some help. Okay, so I'm going to try to remove this guy right here, and I will likely need to replace him. This guy. That guy's off. And now let's see what we got.
Patients need to be activated. Thank you for all you do. Okay, so the Convention of States has a particular procedure that must be followed. Basically, there's a proposal by 2/3 of each House of Congress, followed by popular conventions in each state. That method was used to adopt the 21st Amendment and repeal the prohibition. So you need 2/3 of each House of Congress, and followed by ratification. That is typically how you do a constitutional amendment. Then there's also a proposal by 2/3 of each House and ratification by state legislatures. So you could have a proposal by a convention for proposing amendments and then ratification by popular conventions in each state. That is the Convention of States idea. It doesn't come from Congress. It is a convention for proposing amendments that is called. And then each state ratifies. So it doesn't necessarily have to come through the Congress of the United States. Right? The proposal for the convention for proposing amendments and then ratification by state legislatures is also a possibility. So it's not really clear what popular convention in each state will look like outside of the state legislature, which is one of the questions about the Convention of States. But the basic idea would be that you don't need the approval of Congress in order to amend the Constitution. That's the basic idea behind Convention of States. Grayson says, now that you've recruited Allison Williams to cover sports on the Daily Wire, do you think we'll ever see you commentate on a game or fight or any sport in real time as a special guest to whatever program you guys decide to come up with for Allison Williams? Or maybe it would be a dream for you to do the one thing that seems to design your voice to do, and that may be fair. Now, I am very particular about maintaining my lane, so one of the things I think people make a mistake about is getting outside their lane. Like Feud, this is Soul's theory, was picked up, that sort of mentality was picked up by gangs in the South. And that led to tremendous outbreaks of violence. Southern culture has always had a higher murder rate than Northern culture in the United States. That's his theory. Again, I'm not sure that it's completely convincing, but it's definitely an interesting theory. Daniel says, I'm a full-time single dad. In the car every day, my 5-year-old and I listen to your shows. He gets in the car and starts yelling, play the Ben Shapiro show. He is scary smart. He listened to one of your shows recently that had the mailbag in it. After I explained to him you answer listeners' questions, he asked me to send this message to you with a couple of questions. Here are the questions I promised him I would send you. What is the biggest number? Biggest number does not exist. Infinity is just the name that we use to signify the fact that there is no biggest number. How can you tell if a mushroom is poisonous or not? Oh, I don't know. I just assume all mushrooms are poisonous and then I don't eat them. When can I go to school without a mask? I mean, you should be able to go to school without a mask right now. You should tell your teachers and your administration, not making trouble for Dad. You should tell your teachers and your administration to stop with this nonsense and let you just go to school. P.S. Love the show. I listen to you and Knowles every day. Let's go, Brandon. And Connie says, I love your voice impersonations. They are great and funny. You definitely have a talent for it. My sister and I are having a debate over the proper placement of mezuzahs. My sister thinks a mezuzah has to be on every exterior and interior doorway in the entire house. I disagree. Please help us to settle the issue. So the answer is that any doorway that leads into what would be considered a separate room that is not a bathroom requires a mezuzah. Mezuzah in Jewish law, it's referred to in, I believe, the book of Deuteronomy. The basic idea is that you are supposed to put a piece of it's a cloth, it's a scroll from the Torah with some biblical verses on it, inside essentially a case, and you put that on a door. That's what those are on the doorpost. And then you lean it sort of outside to inside, backwards on the right-hand side of the door that you're going to walk into. So we have probably 20 mezuzot in our house, but it does not apply to bathrooms, and it also does not apply to closets. So that is the basic Jewish law notion. James says, hey Ben, your impersonations are good. I especially like Lou Stencher and Nancy Pelosi. Have you considered doing some scripted bits or sketches? That would be a blast. We appreciate your work. Here's the problem. I'm a terrible actor. I'm really, really bad at acting. So I can do sort of free-willing, random impressions of people, impersonations of people. But anything that is acted, this is a well-known joke around the Daily Wire offices, if it is scripted and I'm asked to act it, then it really, really goes poorly. Alrighty, before we get to our guest, Carol Markowitz, I want to give a shout-out and a note on a former professor of mine at Harvard Law School who passed away. Her name was Lonnie Guinier. She died over the weekend. She was 71. She died of Alzheimer's. What was unique about Lonnie Guinier is that she was wildly left. So Lonnie was a very, very left-leaning person. She was involved even in some critical race theory ideas. She was in favor of proportional voting. She had sort of fascinating views on a wide variety of issues. She advocated an anti-discrimination policy to push equal outcomes, not fair process, for example. I was in her class. She was a wonderful person. She and I had this debate all the time. This is what differentiates her from the Ibram X. Kendis or the Derek Bells of the world. Lonnie was a deeply warm and interesting human being, and she actually was a reference